Hello YouTube and welcome to the next route learning video. On today's video we're just going to be taking a short journey from Perth to Dundee along the Perth to Dundee section of the Scottish East Coast Mainline add-on. So the train we're going to be driving is train 1 Lima 75, which is the 8:06 AM service from Glasgow Queen Street to Dundee, and we will be departing Perth at 9:15. The total distance of the journey is 20.5 miles, and we've got one intermediate stop on the way at Invergowrie. Our traction for the journey today is a Class 170 Turbo Star. The Class 170 was constructed between 1998 and 2005 by Adtrans and Bombardier, and a total of 122 of these trains were built, with 2 or 3 coaches per train. They are currently operated by 5 different train operating companies within the UK, and the one that we're using today is in First Scotrail livery. The maximum speed of these trains is 100 miles per hour, with a power output of 422 horsepower per engine. Once in the cab of the Class 170, there's very little that we actually need to do. I'm just going to put the reversing handle into the forward position, and then beyond that we're pretty much ready to start. I had already put the headlights on before we got in, because the train would already have the headlights on, having come from Glasgow Queen Street already. Unfortunately the windows are not openable in the Class 170, and so yes, we're all set up and pretty much ready to start. As you can see, there is a red signal at the end of the platform. We are waiting for another train to come in off the single track section just ahead, and that will be arriving shortly, and then we will be cleared to depart at 9:15. Departing from Perth, the starting speed limit is 15 miles per hour, and we've got around 17 miles to go to the next stop, which is Invergowrie. Now that we've reached 15 miles per hour, I've just temporarily idled the power to allow the train to coast. As you can see, the speed limit is shortly going up to 20 miles per hour. We've just passed the board there, and as soon as we've crossed over this point we can then accelerate up towards 20 miles per hour. Now at 20 miles per hour I've once again idled the power to allow the train to coast until we can accelerate further. We're now on a very short single track section as we cross a river just here, departing from Perth. I'll try and find out what the river is and put the name of that in the captions on this video. After we've crossed the river, the double track section will restart very shortly, and then the speed limit will be going up to 60 miles per hour. The maximum speed limit on this journey today will be 90 miles per hour. Once I've covered this section of the route from Perth to Dundee, I'm going to make a couple of other videos, possibly outside of Scotland, and then I'm going to come back to revisit Scotland and cover the main Scottish East Coast mainline route from Dundee all the way to Edinburgh. I'm not sure which train to cover that in yet. I've got a choice of several. If there's any train that you would particularly like to see used for that particular video, then do let me know in the comments and I will see if I can accommodate it. I'll try and choose the most popular choice as my train for the journey from Dundee to Edinburgh. Double track section has now restarted, and so we will now be on double track all of the way to Dundee from here. When creating this scenario, I found there was a problem with a distinct lack of AI traffic on this journey, so in fact we're not going to see any other trains pass us now until we approach Dundee. As you can see, the speed limit is now going up to 60 miles per hour, and we can accelerate just before this semaphore signal you see just coming up now. Now going into full power to accelerate up to 60. As you can see on the right, we are now running alongside the river which we crossed as we were departing Perth, and we'll be following that for a few miles before turning away from it. Again, I will try and find the name of that in the captions. And just coming up just ahead is a very, very long overbridge that you can see, and I'm not sure what road goes over the top of that, and again I'm going to look for that in the captions, to put in the captions after researching it. Shortly after that we will actually be running alongside a road for a little while, racing some cars, and thankfully winning. Speed limit is now going up to 70 miles per hour. As we hadn't reached 60, I can just stay in full power now to continue to accelerate up towards 70. As we get towards 70 miles per hour, I'm going to go into step 3 power, which will hold us at around 66 to 67 miles per hour. As we will be running ahead of schedule, as there's for some reason quite a long time given to travel between Perth and Invergowrie on the real life timetable. Driving a little below the speed limit certainly won't be a problem for getting there on time. I have now gone into step 3 power, so you should see our speed just slowly start to fall off as the speedometer needle creeps down towards 65 miles an hour. The next speed change will be an increase in the speed limit to 80 miles per hour, which should be coming up shortly. What I'm going to do when we reach that is just go up one step in power to step 4, and as we do that, that should hold us around 77 miles per hour. Just like to take this moment to remind you that you can find me on Facebook under PTG Rail for the latest updates of what's going on. I will put the link to that in the description of this video. I'd also like to take the time to thank the now 5 people who have decided to support me on Patreon. offering me a small monthly income for doing this project. If you really do appreciate the work that I do and would like to be a part of that, then please visit my Patreon link, which will be in the description of this video. And what I'm basically looking to do is raise money to enable me to purchase more DLC, more trains and routes, so that I can fulfill more requests and make a much wider range of videos. In addition to that, I'm also looking to get a new computer so that I can create videos in a higher quality. For example, the New York to New Haven route, which has been requested I cover on several occasions now, is actually really difficult to cover because the performance is so bad at the minute. It's really laggy on this computer. So we've just passed the 80 mph speedboard, so I've gone up 1 step of power, and as I said already, that should hold us at around 77 mph. We've now got around 11 miles to go to our stop at Invergowrie. So as I was saying, the New York to New Haven route is one route that I struggle with performance issues. Another which can be quite a challenge is the East Coast Main Line London to Peterborough, though I have thankfully managed to make a video on that route in the end. Another video which I've been having problems making is Newcastle to Edinburgh. For some reason I find that route is quite laggy on this computer. Next speed change will be another increase in the speed limit, and that will be up to 90 mph in a short distance time. We're now passing the 90 mph speedboard, so I'm going to once again go up 1 step of power. This should hold us at around 88 mph, which is about the perfect speed to be holding at. I do find that the Class 170 is one train which is actually fairly easy to maintain a speed in, and so if we're happy to just go at 88 mph, which is only 2 below the limit, then if you have the power in step 5, you can guarantee you won't go above the speed limit unless you're on a significant downhill gradient. We're now on the first of 2 long straight sections of track, which are only punctuated by 1 light left-hand curve. So as I said, this is a long straight section now. There will then be a light left-hand curve and then a second long straight section. At the end of the second long straight, we will have just a mile or 2 to go to our stop. Now passing through a closed station. I'm going to try and find the name for that and put that in the captions on this video. The light left-hand curve is coming up that I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. At the end of this light left-hand curve, we will then have 6 miles to go to our stop. We're now entering the second long straight section with 6 miles to go. The next crossing will be 5.5 miles away from the stop, and then the second crossing, the crossing after that, will be 4.5 miles from our stop. Here's the first crossing now, with 5.5 miles to go. here is the second crossing which I mentioned, which means we now have 4.5 miles to go. At this signal we're now coming up to, we've got 1 mile to go to the next speed change, which is a reduction to 80 miles per hour. So at this point I'm now going to idle the power and allow the train to coast. We now have a warning for the 80 mile per hour speed limit, which is around half a mile from the limit itself. I'm just going to apply light braking just as we cross this foot crossing just here. I have now gone up to step 4 power to try and ensure that we don't lose too much speed. Now that we've entered the 80 mile per hour speed limit, we're 1.25 miles from our stop. I'm going to use as a braking point the next AWS ramp coming up, and at that point I will aim to brake at 2 to 2.5 on the brake gauge. So I have now applied the braking to 2.5 on the brake gauge, just as we were passing over the AWS ramp there, which is bringing our speed off quite nicely. Invergowrie station will be coming up shortly. You can see the platforms coming up just ahead now. At Invergowrie we don't want to enter the platform faster than about 20 miles per hour, as it is quite a short platform here, and we do need to stop right at the end. Departing from Invergowrie, the starting speed limit is 80 miles per hour. We've got just under 3.5 miles to go to the next and final stop, which is Dundee. have a warning for the next speed limit change, which is a reduction to 75 miles per hour. That warning is 2/3 of a mile from the limit itself. However, as we're still doing under 80, or under 75 as well, that speed change won't actually affect us. When we pass the 75 mile per hour speed board, however, I'm then going to idle the power and allow the train to coast. As the 75 board is only just over half a mile from the next speed change, which is a reduction down to 50 miles per hour. We've now passed the 75 mile per hour speed board, so I have now idled the power to allow the train to coast. We now have a warning for a speed reduction to 50 miles per hour, so I'm just applying the brakes now just to make sure that our speed comes off. The warning is 1/3 of a mile from the 50 mile per hour speed limit. I have now released the brakes and I'm allowing the train to coast. The 50 mile per hour speed board is just by this signal here, and I do need to take note that we have a single yellow signal. This means that the signal guarding Dundee station is currently showing a red aspect. On the right hand side now you can just make out the Tay Bridge, which is on the line from Edinburgh to Dundee. We do now have a warning for a further speed reduction down to 40 miles per hour. The warning is half a mile from the speed limit itself and also from the next signal. So I am now braking to slow down, as we did have a single yellow aspect previously. I do apologise for the bit of lag we just had there, I'm not sure what caused that. I am now driving with caution, assuming that the next signal is red until I can see otherwise. And in fact, we can now see that it is displaying a red aspect. We're waiting for a train to clear the platform at Dundee, and once it has, then we will be able to turn. I'll go through this signal and turn onto the correct track for our platform at Dundee, which is one of the bay platforms. So I'm now just going to allow the train to crawl towards the signal, and I'll gradually slow us down as we get closer to the signal using light braking. Now see the train just ahead, which is currently giving us the red aspect. As soon as that has cleared the area, the signal will then change. The signal has now cleared to a single yellow, and as you can see, the speed limit is now dropping to 40 miles per hour just ahead. The 40 mile per hour speed board is 1/3 of a mile from the next speed change, which is a reduction down to 30 miles per hour. So I'm not going to accelerate above 30, as I don't see much point, as we'll have to slow it. Otherwise we would have to slow down again very shortly. As we get towards 30 miles per hour, I'm going to idle the power at just below 30 and allow the train to coast. Coming into Dundee, we're about to enter a very steep downhill gradient, as steep as 1 in 38. So I'm going to need to use the brakes for speed control and also to slow us down for entering the platform, which you can see just ahead. I am now applying light braking to ensure that we don't accelerate on this downhill section, and gradually increasing the brakes just over 2.5 now to try and bring our speed down on this gradient. I'm aiming to enter the platform at no faster than around 15 miles per hour, which we're doing now, so I'm now releasing the brakes a bit just to ensure that we don't lose too much speed and stop too early. One thing I will mention is that when stopping at the platform here in Dundee, don't try and stop too close to the buffers. If you do, the TPWS system will trip and the emergency brakes will apply. I believe it registers you as having gone through a red signal, and that might be the reason why. I can turn off the wipers now, as we're now under the roof, and so it's not raining on us anymore. So I'm going to aim to stop just a little bit further from the buffers than I usually would. This seems to be about the right place. Thank you very much for watching, and I really hope that you've enjoyed the video.